Probably because the thing is, that's the same time as 11 class, about 2 or 3, and where I is correct. They're just like, it's double, yeah. But yeah, I just thought about it. But right now, we're just playing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah, the feedback.
This computer.
All right. Good evening, everyone, or afternoon. Thank you all for bearing with us as we get transitioned to the program. I see that everyone found the food successfully, so that is perfect. For those who are in attendance, if you're interested in grabbing a bite to eat, please feel free to go back and forth as often as you would like to, but we just ask that you sign the sign-in sheet right over there so we can take a head count of all the people who are here with us today before we start our conversation. So today kicks off our Pathway series. So for students who have been with robotics for some time, you may remember that we have had the Pathway series as an opportunity to answer the question of what you can do with a robotics degree. And so each year, one semester out of the academic year, we actually feature a series of speakers. So we're starting our series for the 24-25 academic year today. And we have an amazing speaker, and I don't want to steal any of his thunder because he has an awesome story to tell you all and a lot of great things as far as pearls and nuggets to share with you. But I would ask that in this space, and those who are attending virtually too, you are welcome to, and I'll be moderating the chat, to ask as many questions as needed. As the outline that was shared with you all, that was also on the website, we're going to give him an opportunity to share his story roughly around 30 minutes or so, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A and questions. So be thinking of some amazing questions specifically for you or for a friend that you know, so that you can get some information. Today we have Vic Pellicano, who will be here with us from Seraph AI. So he is the founder and the CEO. So Vic, I'm actually going to send it over to you, and then you can take it from there. Feel free to work the room and do all the cool stuff.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Good. Thank. I'm gonna hit OK on there. There was a button to hit OK, and I can't live with notifications. It's funny because I yell at my kids all the time when I look at their phones, and there's like a bunch of notifications, and I'm like, this is like a messy room. It's like a messy digital. You gotta take care of this. Hi, nice to meet all of you. Can everybody hear me okay? I presume. Nice to meet you. My name is Vic Pellicano, as Kyle said. I'm the founder and CEO of Seraph AI. I'm sure you guys have heard of AI in this room and robotics. I took a fairly untraditional path, which is why I like coming to colleges and high schools and talking to young people.
Sorry, I think we're getting issue.
Should I not hit that button? See?
Not sure. Check, yeah.
Oh, should I talk into the microphone?
No.
Oh, they can't hear. Please unmute. Oh, so they're saying they can hear.
Okay.
Great.
Overall.
So somebody had their speakers muted. Cool. All right. So, okay. Is this the best? Is this where the camera is? Yeah, okay. I'll stay here. Hi, Vic Pellicano, Seraph AI. I made the AI joke already. So this is awesome. I'm so excited to be at the University of Michigan School of Robotics. I personally love robots, even though I've only had interest in them for the last couple of years, about as long as the school's been around. I like to talk to young people, especially at colleges, high schools, things like that, because I took a fairly untraditional path. I don't know where any of you came from or what your backgrounds were, what your parents do for a living. But what I like to do is tell you that I shouldn't be standing here. I shouldn't be wealthy. I shouldn't be running companies. I think it's and when you hear a little bit of my background, it'll make more sense. But I hope what you get from hearing me talk is that in this world, it really is a merit-based system. And if you work really hard and you do the right things, and yes, catch a few breaks, you can be here. There's nothing special about me. I'm a kid from a trailer park. My dad was a truck driver. He left school when he was in 6th grade to go drive a truck for a living. My mom got her GED. She was the most educated in my whole family, from Chicago, from the south side of Chicago. And, you know, and I grew up like that, right? Dad was a truck driver, rarely ever home, single parent household. No clue that I would be working in tech or doing the things I've done or seeing parts of the world. I didn't get on an airplane for the first time until I was like 24 years old. So just a little bit of background. I left the state like 3 times, and by that I mean like the immediate Chicago area, not like all over the state either. Like that was pretty adventurous. So lived a pretty different life. When I was about 13 or 14 years old, my dad got a Packard Bell computer. You guys don't know what that is, but it was like one of the first home computers that wasn't like an Apple. It was like the cheaper knockoff version. And I just, for the first time, could see the whole universe in there. There was so much information in the world that I didn't have access to. Now it's hard to imagine, I think, for you guys who grew up with like probably too much information sometimes. But we didn't have any, unless you had a friend with like an encyclopedia. Like I was interested in like, frogs at one point when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And I had to write like a list of questions down and go to the library and like look that stuff up. Like about frogs. You had to remember what you wanted to know and then like have the motivation to go look it up somewhere. And you didn't know if it was true, by the way. Like there was one encyclopedia at the library, so whatever that thing said was kind of true. I certainly didn't have those kind of books to look things up. So when I got my Packard Bell at home, I was just like, I just looked at it, and for the first time, I had access to an enormous amount of data, of information. And I just like, you don't know what you're gonna do, but just something like sparks you towards something. And so I just kind of fell in love with the thing. Early internet chat rooms, it was called IRC. It was kind of like the Discord of its day, actually. Used the same hashtag thing for like channels and stuff, very similar. And went on there, taught myself to code, to write Unix scripts, use shell prompts, just manually, just figuring this stuff out. I installed Linux on that computer, which was a non-trivial affair. I had to give a guy from a chat room my home address, which in those days you did not do. That was like rule 1. But there was no other way to get this thing, and he had to send me 9 CD-ROMs with like that you had to install in order, and it didn't work. And I bricked the whole computer, and my dad was not happy with me. So he had to buy another one, and then I did it again, but it worked that time. And I set up the dual boot and everything so that he wouldn't know what I did. And but I needed Linux because I wanted to write scripts, and then I got myself into trouble, which you never know where the line is in this world until somebody slaps you in the hand, So got myself into some trouble, but I figured out what I was doing pretty quickly, just because I was really interested. It was fascinating to me, the kind of like capabilities of all these computers talking to each other, all these people talking to each other, and so when I got to high school, because that was before high school, I knew more about computer science, HTML programming than like my professors did. So I was like in high school, I was like teaching those classes. I was a terrible high school student. I think I actually set the school record, which I found out they don't maintain, in detentions. My senior year, I had 36 detentions, and I graduated with a 2.3 GPA, I think. And by the way, the detentions were not like for terrible things. I just could not get to school on time, just refused. I would show up late, and if I knew I was gonna be late, I would just stop and get a coffee in the newspaper, because I knew I was gonna be sitting in the dean's office for half an hour, like waiting for her to have time to deal with me today. So I would just read the newspaper and eat like a bagel or whatever. And she'd be like, whatever. And so I spent a lot of time in Saturday detention in high school. I tell that story because I went back to the high school where I went to give a similar speech, and it was in the same room where they had Saturday detention, where I'd spent so much time. And I don't think the teachers loved me telling that story while I was there, but it's a true story. I wanted to go to a big school like Michigan. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to go here probably, but I did get accepted to U of I because I had a really, really high ACT score. Because despite my lack of effort in high school, I'm pretty smart. And I got accepted, but I couldn't go. My mom was sick with terminal cancer. She got sick when I was 16, and they gave her like 2 years to live. And I couldn't be that far away. So I stayed close to the house. I went to a small school called University of St. Francis, where I made some great friends. And she ended up passing away like halfway through my sophomore year of undergraduate. I didn't want to transfer because like I was pretty good at St. Francis. There was only like 3 computer science students back then, by the way. And so like I had I had really great teachers. It was a small school. I got one-on-one, whatever I wanted. But it was always my mom's dream that I went to law school. So I applied for and got into Loyola University, Chicago School of Law. And I started there shortly thereafter. This must have been 2004, 2005, whatever that would be. And then I went, and by the way, when I was an undergraduate, I double majored in computer science and math. And I worked full-time across 3 jobs: the computer science lab, I washed dishes, and I did pizza delivery, and just filled up my time. I've always found that's my way of dealing with stress, is just to keep myself so busy that I never process what's happening, which they tell you not to do, by the way, nowadays. This is not, I'm not giving you advice on how to deal with your mental health, but it's worked for me and I made some money. But I worked full-time and I double majored and went to school full-time. And then I went to law school at night, and it was a 4-year program. And during the day I worked at a law firm. So it was like, and it was in Chicago and I lived in the suburbs. So it was like an hour drive. So I'd leave my house about 5 in the morning, and then I'd go to the office from 8 to 5. And then I'd take a train farther north to the law school, and then 6 to 10, and then take the train back and then drive all the way home. I get home about midnight, and I did that for 4 years. So like movies came out, babies were born, you know, it's like albums came out. I have no idea. There's like a big period of this world that I just didn't, but it was my way out of this life. You know what I mean? I grew up, you know, not in the way I wanted to live my life, and being like a high-powered attorney, like you see on TV, Law and Order, all that stuff, like that's what I wanted. You know what I mean? Like the nice suits, the nice cars. And about 3.5 years into that 4-year night program, my dad passed away, and I was the only child. And that was very sudden, by the way, and very traumatic. And while I was dealing with his affairs, because now all of a sudden, like I had to manage the house and all the bills, and he had just gotten married before he died, so I had to deal with that. And by the way, he died with $3,000 in his checking account, which I don't know, even then was not a lot of money. So I just had to cobble some things together for a little while. It didn't last long. And then when I went to go back to school to finish my last semester of law school, I didn't fill out my FAFSA paperwork because my dad died like right around the time the FAFSA stuff was due, and I just lost track of it. And when I went to go back for my last semester, they were like, "Oh, yeah, we'll take you back. Where's your $20,000 check for this semester?" And I was like, "Well, I have loans." You know what I mean? And they're like, "No, you don't, because we don't have your paperwork." And I was like, "Oh, well, okay. So like maybe I can figure it out and come back next semester." And they're like, "Well, there's one class you need to graduate, and we only offer it every 4 years. And here, it's happening right now. And if you don't take it, that's it." So that was the end of my law school career, $130,000 in debt. And so then I just kind of let my life fall apart because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do then. So I ended up losing the house like piece by piece too. And this is like 2008, right? Great time for this stuff to happen, 2008, 2009. They shut the water off, they shut the lights off. I stayed in the house as long as I could, just go to the gym and shower or whatever. And then one day, you know, in 2008, they'd send people to come live in your house to get you out. Like that's kind of a story that didn't go reported a lot, but the banks wanted people out of their houses so they could foreclose on them and sell them to other people. And yeah, so one day I came home, I was delivering pizzas or something, and there was just a guy sleeping on the couch in my house, and then that was it. And I took the dog. My car got repoed, everything else, like no money, no nothing. I had a little dog. So I had been borrowing a van from a friend, and I stayed in there for a couple months with the dog, just kind of piecing life together. You can go a really long way on rum and peanut butter and jelly. You can make it. And then a friend of mine moved back to town, and she had a job at a manufacturing company in Chicago. And she told me that she could get me a job over there. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I hadn't done anything with a computer in a very long time at this point. I had worked at a law firm as like a law clerk, but it pays like 10, 12 bucks an hour. And I said, well, I don't have any better options. And it was in like the sales department of a manufacturing company selling bus seats. Not exactly the kind of exciting, high-powered life that I wanted to live, right? But I took the job and I loved it. I loved the people, I loved the culture, and I was just happy to have a job. Honestly, I was happy to like somebody was willing to pay me for my time, you know, like it had been a while since I felt appreciated in any meaningful way. And so I worked my butt off. And you got to remember now, I've spent the last 8 years putting in more than full-time, double time, 80, 100-hour weeks. And all of a sudden I go to this office and people work till 5 o'clock and then just stop and like have social lives. And I was like, what is this? I just get to do whatever I want. Like it was very strange to me. But I'm a workaholic, so I ended up just automating big parts of my own job, right? There's like, when you do sales, there's all this paperwork you have to fill out. We fixed a lot of that later, but you'd have to, I'd sell something to him, so I'd have to send paperwork to purchasing, to you, all these forms. And I was like, this is stupid. And I hadn't used my computer science skills in a long time. And so I just started automating big parts of my job so that it would just be easier for me so I could do less work because I'm inherently lazy. And then I showed my boss, hey, I'm like, look what I built for myself. And she was like, this is very interesting. She's like, could you do this with it? I was like, sure. And then pretty soon I was literally like the sales guy, like a customer service guy at a manufacturing company. And then I was writing software for $100 million firm for everybody in the company within 2 years. And new job title, everything else. And then I started a company called Verenia. Again, no idea. I never even managed a person, okay, at this place. I sold bus seats and then I wrote software that helped me sell bus seats. And then I just went door to door in the office and said, hey, do you guys need any software? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, cool, and that was it. I just literally just made up a job, just went in the company and just went door to door humbly, like I was selling something and was like, what do you guys need me to do? And everybody had ideas, everybody wanted stuff, and they couldn't get things through the traditional channels. So, I was already working there. And that helped me save my job, by the way, because it was 2008 and they fired a lot of people. But they didn't fire me because I was out there just hustling up work. I was just out there walking around the neighborhood asking what people needed. And they liked that. So I went and started a company called Verenia that made sales enablement software for manufacturers. Had to teach myself all this stuff, by the way. All these words I'm saying, I didn't know either. And didn't know what I was doing. And then I had, I think, 4 full-time employees before I quit my job full-time. So I could go work on the business because the business couldn't support me. It needed to make money and I needed employees to help it do that. And then I bootstrapped the whole business for about 10 years. We were about 120 people. We had manufacturing customers all over the globe. And, about 10 years after I started, Oracle came in and bought it. Yeah, it's a very short version of events there. But I think the reason I was willing to take those risks is because it was every day from the day I started at that company, my life was better, because I had seen the bottom of this life that I hope you guys never see. But the benefit of getting that low in the world is everything feels great. It's like being when your leg hurts really bad and then it doesn't, you're like, oh, this feels wonderful. But if it never hurt, it never feels wonderful. You know what I mean? And I think that was my distinct advantage in business was, a lot of these guys they had to make $10 million, $50 million, $100 million, or they had to raise money or this or that, or they felt like failures. I made it out of that van. I'm not a failure. You know what I mean? I'm winning here. I already won is how I felt and everything. Even if this doesn't work out, I'm already winning. And I think that kind of attitude helped me build confidence and build the business. And I think people wanted to work for me. They wanted a guy like that, and I spent a lot of time in the Midwest here. Obviously, we do a lot of manufacturing out here. And how I won deals is I would drive to the office, just like I did yesterday out here. I still have customers out here in Michigan. And I'd drive up there and I'd sit in the office with their CEOs, their IT leadership, and say, what do you need from me? What can I do? What did I do wrong? What can I do right? What should we build next year? People love that. It's like the old school sales, like Tommy Boy, if you guys ever saw that movie. I used to just get in my car and drive for 2 weeks around the Midwest and go customer to customer. Nobody does that. You know what I mean? But that's how I built it. And ultimately why we were so successful when we got acquired by Oracle. So yeah, brief summary of my background and how I made a lot of my money. Then I was at Oracle, which is basically you're retired. If you work for a company like that, it's a much different job because it's so big. It's 250,000 employees. It's like a government, you only have one very small role to do. And if there's no work for that role right away, you're just kind of waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. It's not a very creative position. But it was fine. And then ChatGPT came out. So what is that? 2 years ago now, roughly, and well, 3.5, it had been out for a while, but when 3.5 launched, I was like, what am I looking at? Like I've been working in technology now for 10 years in software. I never saw anything like this. Like I had an existential crisis, you know, I was like, am I just a chatbot? You know what I mean? Like I'm talking to it and it was the weirdest thing. And then Microsoft had that weird chatbot that thought it was alive for a minute and was telling that reporter like to leave his wife and stuff. It was a weird few months there of chatbot stuff. But you know when you see something, you know when it's special. You know, like it's hard to define exactly why, but you just look at it and you're like, everything's going to be different now. You know, like, and I knew I had to get out of Oracle because I knew it's so hard for a company like that to innovate. You know, this is the time of innovation, and I hope all of you take that into account because you're living in amazing times. The chaos that AI and robots are going to bring to this world is a ladder for all of you to climb. Every incumbent company is going to be slow to take this on, is going to be slow to take advantage of this opportunity, and you're blessed with it. Like the electricity just got invented, you know what I mean? The car just got invented, and you know, like the industry is still fighting about whether there should be horses. That's where you guys are right now. It's an amazing time to be going into the workforce, especially with fresh ideas, right, about how things should work, because we lack those. So I'm looking at ChatGPT and I'm trying to decide what to do with it because it does so much that it's hard to imagine building on it, right? And then I had a Roomba and I'm watching the Roomba just wander aimlessly around my house, missing everything it should be picking up, just frustrating me. And I'm on my phone on ChatGPT and I'm thinking, how can this thing be so smart? And this Roomba is so dumb. Like, it didn't sync up to me. So we built a company called Aviana, and the idea was connecting LLMs, ChatGPT and other ones, to the open source operating systems for robots, ROS2, et cetera, basically creating like a big middleware package. In fact, one of my engineers, Safe, who's on the call, hi Safe, I don't know if the other guys are on there, he helped us build it. And what we did was we created a chatbot. He did a lot more work on it than I did, truthfully. What we did is we created a chatbot that could be more easily connected to these robots and drive them from natural language, right? And let them use inferencing through vision models and stuff like that. So we, you know, in our final flight we did before that company was acquired, we took the drone, we went to a field and we told it through the chatbot, like, hey, there's a person missing in the field, can you find them? And one of our engineers went and hid behind a tree line and it took off on nobody controlling it and created a search path of the area and searched and found the guy who was hiding behind a tree line, took a picture, sent it back to the chat with the coordinates and said, hey, is this the person you're looking for? This is where they are. And I was like, yes. Then it came and it landed right back in front of us. We built that in like 8 months. No, from zero drone, from zero code to this fully functioning product in 8 months. Incredible. And then, you know, what happened was the problem we had to solve for, and this is what you look for, right, in business or in this life, is trying to figure out what problem you're actually solving for people. Because sometimes it's harder than you think, right? You think you're solving this, but then when you look at it deeper, so one of the things you had to solve is we had to do AI stuff on moving data. Because you can't train a model. They don't really talk about training or fine tuning nowadays because it's stupid. Thank God they caught up to that. But for a long time, they were talking about fine tuning these models. And but you can't fine tune on moving data. You guys know this. You're in robotics, right? You can't fine tune a model on sensor data. It's like it makes no sense to do that. So what you have to do is you have to have like a chain that is taking into account the dynamic inputs of its environment and having it behave accordingly based on those. You need triggers, you need things to analyze the data, you need to work with big structured data sets, big unstructured data sets, all kind of working in concert, right, while working with the robot. And then I thought, this problem is a robotics problem, but it's also a problem with enterprise AI. Is like the idea that, like, you know, if you're a manufacturing company and you want to know what your inventory is, you can't train a model on your inventory. That's really dumb. You don't want the model to know what the inventory was last time because it's irrelevant. And there's a lot of that data, right? That's irrelevant. That, like, through training, you would enforce the learning of it. You would say, you know, I have 10 of these microphones. I have 10 of these microphones. Do I have 10 of these microphones? I have 10 of these microphones. That's stupid because like now you're screwing its brain up, you know? So now when you ask it how many of the microphones you have, it's like, do I have 10? But it should never know. It should go look it up when you ask, right? So anyways, we use that same system and we pointed it to enterprise data. So that's where Seraph came from, was we took that core part of the business that was able to do all that stuff and hooked up enterprise data. And now we work with companies, the University of Michigan would be a lovely company to work with someday, where we can give answers like ChatGPT would, but from your grounded data, like only from your enterprise data, not from the internet, not from the hallucinated affairs of these things, just from your grounded data in your organization. And then it returns truthful results that can be proven out and grounded only in the company's data. And it works very fast. And so yeah, that's how we ended up with Seraph. And Aviana was acquired by the 4th fastest growing manufacturing company in the United States, a company called Lucid Bots, where Safe is now happily employed. And they're doing amazing things with AI and robotics. They make drones that clean buildings. So like, I mean, buildings are dirty everywhere, right? And nobody ever cleans the outside of them because it's a nightmare. You know, you have to build scaffolding, you got to get somebody out there with a power washer up and down. Like, but now their drones are doing a lot of this work, and they even have a new rover to do parking lots and such like that. But it's a very fast growing company. They're out of Charlotte, and they got acquired. Now I'm on the board of that company, which I'm going to Charlotte tomorrow for meetings with them. But love robotics, love AI, very passionate, very happy and blessed to be working in the industries I am. But I say all this to tell you guys, like, if you'd have met me 15 years ago, even a little more, you'd have no idea that like I'd be doing this stuff. Like, I'm not from good stock, as they say. I don't have like a good degree from good school like you guys will. I didn't have parents to like open a door for me. I mean, they weren't even alive, but even if they were alive, they would be pretty useless in my career search, you know? You don't have to have been somebody or know somebody to make it in this world. What you need to do is you need to look at the world and say, what does the world need from me, and what can I do for it? So when you look out there, I think there's this obsession nowadays with people being like, what am I interested in, right? What interests me, and like how, like I want to make money doing something that interests me, and like maybe, but the thought process has to be, what do they need? Like, what does the world need? Like, you need to solve problems for other people. That's what I did. That's what all entrepreneurs do. That's what all business people do, is solve problems for other people. Capitalism isn't perfect, by the way. I'll say that out loud. But I think inherently it's about solving problems. And you're going to have access to all the world's experts through AI chatbots, right? Like, even me, who I had to go talk to people who were experts in sales and marketing, and people like about fundraising, which I never raised money. But you know, I had to go talk to these people and learn, but you guys can just open ChatGPT and ask. Like, you're blessed in so many ways to build the new world. And I'm so excited to see you guys do it. I hope some of you start a business, some people on this call or whatever, start businesses and give me the opportunity to invest and give advice, because it's going to happen. Like, the next 20 years are going to be amazing. There's going to be so many cool technologies that come online. You guys are so enabled and so blessed to be in the spot you're in. And I'm so jealous and happy for you guys. I'd say, you know, I thought the cloud was the big invention of my lifetime, like the idea of centralized compute, like outside of just having to have a more and more powerful desktop. I was like, this changes everything, but I had no idea that like LLMs and AI would do what they did. And I don't even know what's next. I have no idea, but I know right now the world needs, you know, accessibility. The world needs more labor. The world needs more access to expertise and smart people, and to enable guys like you and ladies like you to give you guys the tools that you guys need to build the next world. And I'm excited that you guys are going to do that. So I don't know if that was half an hour or not.
That was a good time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Was it close?
That was pretty close.
All right, I'll take it.
Awesome. So both for those who are virtual and then those who are in person, this is a great opportunity now. Based on everything that Vic has shared, got a really good groundwork of like some questions that you can ask. So now we're going to open up the floor for anyone who has a question that they would like to ask to Vic directly.
All right, I'll ask one.
Yes, sir.
What's it like to, you know, have your company get acquired by a company like Oracle? What was The most unexpected thing you kind of ran into then?
My lawyer said it was the most one-sided fight they'd ever seen. If you ever seen in Jurassic Park when the T-Rex just eats like the person trying to run away from it, no, I'm kidding. I'll be honest, it's kind of an honor. You know what I mean? To be approached by a company of that size and scale and prestige that's been around as long as it has, to have their leadership be interested in you. The things you learn, like about corporate strategy and the way they do things, it's totally different. I think the biggest lesson I took away from it was like, you know, you have to figure out what leverage you have in any situation. And the thing I learned is you can't, like, can you beat a shark?
Yes, sir.
No, but you're wrong, because the question is, where's the fight? Because you can't beat them in the water. On land, you could beat a shark, right? So you got to find where you can win this battle, right? You got to drag them into the dirt. You got to find a place where you can win this thing, because you can't beat them on their turf. You know, you can't win anything that way, but you got to figure out where you can fight, you know, because like where the fight is matters just as much as who the fight's against. And I'm not an easy person I seem like a nice guy, and I am sometimes. But I'm not an easy person to deal with at a corporate level. And because I'm very good at picking where we're going to have this fight, you know? And I think I can't get into too many specifics, mainly because this is being recorded. But I can say that it does matter where that fight is. And yeah, and outside of that, it's leverage, right? It's like, you know, they have levers they can pull, you have levers you can pull, but you always have something you can do, right? In any negotiation, in any fight. And your power sometimes is just leaving. Your power sometimes is just, I ain't doing it, you know? And like, if you can stare into the abyss like that and you can turn down that kind of money, you know, people get scared of like what you're capable of, because, you know, not everybody can do that. So yeah, I'd say to get the deal you want, sometimes you got to walk from the one you don't. And never fight the shark in the water. Yes.
I have two questions. One's a bit goofier than the other one. First one is, when you had 3 jobs and you're also going to school, how did you manage energy levels, I suppose?
Well,
You can repeat the question for the people online.
How did I manage energy levels with all those jobs and all that school? And, you know, my mom was sick. I didn't want to go home. It was less stress. It was less stress working 17 hours a day. You know what I mean? It required less energy doing that. I will say, like, I'm a pretty energetic person, and by the way, I did not have great grades. Like, I think my undergraduate, I think I was like a 3.1 GPA or something. Like, it wasn't amazing. They've given me a lot of awards since then, since I got rich, but certainly not when I left. So I don't know that I put all the energy into school. I've always tried to diversify my time, if that makes sense. Like, I never go all in on anything, because I like my levers. And if you only have one lever, then, you know, that's too much leverage people can pull on me, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Second question is, what was the dog's name?
Oh, Yoda. Yeah, the dog lived to be 22 years old. Oh, that was a sweet question. Thank you. I haven't thought about her in a minute. Thanks. Yes, sir.
So the rumors or the skeptics in the street usually attack AI enthusiasts like yourself or me on 2 fronts from my experience. One is the current cost of LLMs and like AI is sort of covered by venture capital money. So when that money goes away, it's not going to be as cost efficient, it's not going to be as valuable. The supply might not catch up to the demand. And then the other front that I've seen is like, we always expect things to just keep improving, like LLMs would be more interpretable, more trustworthy. But some also say that's not going to happen, right? So do you have a response to these kinds of skepticisms that you encounter maybe daily or once a while.
I mean, the first one, I don't really know what to do with because like, what do they care what the cost is, right? If the money's coming out of somebody else's pockets, what do you care? I mean, you spend half your time trying to get that money out of their pockets anyway. So like, you hear a lot about, taxing or wealth tax and this and that, but they're just putting it in the market. So like, why do you care? If it's financed that way, I mean, half the stuff that comes out of China is state sponsored anyway, which like, this is just privately state sponsored, I guess. So I wouldn't do much with that argument except just kind of roll my eyes at it. I think, and what was the second one?
The second one is more to do with, like, a lot of AI depending on the projection of like a better AI. A trustworthy reasoning, like smart AI.
Yeah.
Not spitting out hallucinations as much.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say as a pseudo competitor, ChatGPT hallucinates all the time. You should never use it. You should use Seraph. So it's garbage. It lies. It's the worst thing ever. But in all seriousness, I think trust is earned. And I think there's kind of proof in the pudding, right? I mean, what does it have, 100 million users or something, 200 million users, whatever it is, like some absurd number. Trust is earned, right? Do you trust Donald Trump? Do you trust Kamala Harris, right? Like it's a weird, it doesn't have a strict definition. It's a squishy word. I think the fact that people use it shows that it's useful. So I don't think so much about trust. I think about usefulness, and people are finding it useful. That's what the market decides, right? I think the idea that they'll continue to get better and there's some kind of like digital god they're going to create is the stupidest tech religion thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, and I can't believe people I thought were like rational beings are like on this bandwagon that they think they're going to invent something that's going to like transcend humanity. Here's my argument is like, they say like, oh, for AGI to exist, it'd be smarter than a person, right? And like, have you talked to a person? Like, and then ChatGPT, like it's already smarter than people. Like, I don't know a single person smarter than ChatGPT. Anyway, so like, what does that mean? It means nothing, And by the way, even if you invented something that was significantly smarter, okay, like God level, you couldn't think of the words to ask it. So it wouldn't matter. The birds right now could be chirping equations that could solve gravity, and you'd have no idea, right? Because you're not at the level to understand it. So like, even like, I think about that. I think about hallucinations sometimes. And if they're really hallucinations or just connections we haven't made between thoughts and ideas, and we have to dumb it down for ourselves to like bring it down to our level. So yeah, I don't think it matters. I think at that level you end up with real hard resource constraints, which is why they're trying to invest in like, nuclear power, and NVIDIA is trying to make more and more of these chips. And that's frankly why Taiwan's going to be a very important place for the foreseeable future, because it's going to come down to compute, right? Like you couldn't whip up an enterprise software package like O1 or O3 is good at like, making a little Python game or something like that. You can't whip up like Salesforce. You know what I mean? Now, could you theoretically, if you had infinite compute and like a room full of O3 models, maybe, right? You might be able to. Can everybody do that? No. You know what I mean? But over enough timeline, maybe, but it's going to come down to compute, right? And humans only move so fast that I don't think that it matters much, frankly. I think they're already super smart, and I think there's a limit to how smart they can be because there's a limit to how smart we can be, or that we can make use of the language. Like, think about when you go talk to, I don't know if you have kids. I don't know if anybody in this room is old enough to have kids. I have a few. There are certain things you can't tell them because they can't do anything with the information. Like, so what good does it do to tell them that stuff? And I think there's a level to that with like AI is like, if it gets to that level, we can't do anything with the information anyway. Like it could tell you like, hey, if you had this antimatter particle, you could do this thing. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Well, we can't do anything with that. I think it's a little silly the way they talk about it. It's definitely like a cult religion pumping thing that I haven't quite gotten my head around yet, but maybe they're right. I'm humble enough to be wrong. I never thought ChatGPT 3.5 would be so much better than 3.0 and kind of blow the world up the way it did. Like talking computers and stuff's kind of crazy, but I can't see it. I don't know if that's
cool. Yeah.
A very long-winded answer. If anybody else asks me a question, no, I'll talk for 10 to 15 minutes.
Thank you.
So We
One
have
in
a,
the chat.
we have a question in the chat as John was sharing. So the person in the chat was basically sharing that they thought that your conversation was inspirational, but they wanted to know how you stay on top of trends. And then the second part of the question is how you made that transition into jumping into the field and starting your business from the ground up.
I'm gonna assume trend, we're talking about like technology, right? Like models and things like that. Frankly, it's just reading it all day long, everywhere. You know, Reddit's actually a great source. You know, there's Local Llama and there's some other really good sources where people talk about these things constantly that kind of keep your brain active. And I think that's a misnomer to say what made you decide to jump into a new field and start from the ground up. I did start from the ground up, but it's not a new field. I've been solving this problem, enterprise software problems for 10 years. It's the same thing, just a better solution, right? So before we used to make quoting software. That's what Verenia made. So if you're a manufacturer, you have a boat and you go online and you change the colors of the boat, the options, all that. And then you go, okay, give me the price. That's called a configurator, right? That's what we made. And we made it for hundreds of companies that do complex manufacturing. But when you zoom out and you look at the whole sales process for a manufacturer, it's much deeper than quoting. Like quoting is important, but it's just one thing, right? And now I look at it with Seraph, with AI, and I say, this whole thing I can fix now. You know what I mean? We can take this whole process that I know well and fix it. And so it's the same problem I've been solving, just with better technology, right? Which is what makes me good at this and what makes my business valuable and why we're growing fast is because I've been solving this for a long time. I know exactly who these guys are. I know their problems and I know how to solve them. And now I've just got a better tool to do it. You know what I mean? It's like I was doing it with a hammer before and then somebody gave me a nail gun, you know, but I'm still building floors. That might not be the best analogy, but hopefully that made some sense. Yes.
I was wondering, like, how do you think these like big foundation models like Llama and ChatGPT, like the APIs, like, how do you think they're going to affect like new startups and things like that?
I think there's going to be so many more new startups in every area, not just in tech, but everywhere, right? Again, access to expertise. Like if you grew up in the world I grew up in, like I'd never met a CEO. Until I was one, I'd never met one. And the only lawyers I knew are the ones that were getting my dad out of jail, you know? And they were not good lawyers, by the way. I mean, I guess he never stayed in jail very long, so I guess they were pretty good. But I couldn't just go chat with something, you know what I mean? And be like, what is the legal framework around this? Or how do I do this? Or like you had to know somebody who knew somebody, and then you had to set a meeting and a time, and you had to like take notes, and you couldn't, like if you thought of a follow-up question next week, well, you're not gonna see that guy again, maybe ever. So like the fact that you guys all have access to that, amazing. And so I think there's gonna be so many more because you guys now, every one of you has the network of a Yale graduate or whatever, because you guys have that access to expertise. That's what those guys sell. You know what I mean? When you go to one of those Ivy League schools, which I guess this is like Midwest Ivy League, if there is such a thing, they sell access. Like, look at all these great people that went here. Like, you'll get to meet with this person who did this great thing, and they'll give you this great advice. But now you have all this advice, which it's very important to know people too, by the way, that hasn't gone away. But you can at least get questions answered, right? So the bar now, like, that's what the internet did, is it brought the encyclopedia to me, and now it's brought expertise to you, like direct expertise. That's how I think of it anyway. So the access to information has gone down. So I think there'll be many more. I think Llama really kind of blew the world up, right? That open source model, like I don't think Zuckerberg gets enough credit for that thing and how that changed the entire landscape of AI. Like the idea, and the Chinese models are great. You know, if you're up for that adventure, like DeepSeek's really good. But the fact that Llama open sourced that thing is incredible, especially with the license they did. It was just a stick in Google and OpenAI's eye, you know? And I still don't know why he did it. Like, it makes no sense. But I think there's an overall interest in not having a $1 trillion competitor eat you, you know, like in market cap or otherwise. But I'm very happy he did it because we rely on those models pretty heavily, and I think they're great models. I think they're really good, especially for researchers and people who are working on like edge compute and things like that, like you guys do, because they release the smaller models. and you don't have to use the APIs, right? You can deploy them locally, which is going to be very important for robotics especially. So I'm very happy with it. I think, again, think about like if you had to pay OpenAI, and OpenAI wasn't going to release a small model. They want you to use the API so they can charge you, which they should really call it closed AI, right, at this point. But they weren't going to release like a 3 billion parameter model or something like that because there's nothing in it for them. But you guys need those, right, to do your labeling, to do, you know, different types of small compute tasks. And the fact that that's out there just is going to make robots like a realistic outcome where I don't think they would have been. I don't think the kind of compute you guys need to run the robotics of the future could have come over an API. Yes, sir.
Can you share any challenges or obstacles that you faced as a CEO and founder, whether it's with the previous company that you sold to Oracle or the current one that you have now, and how you overcame those issues?
So many. So I had a guy who, hopefully he's not on this call, who's a dear friend of mine who I've known since I was 9 years old, and was my first employee, and ended up in charge of a rather large team because we were growing. And it was clear after a few years that he was not the guy to do this job. And imagine having to go to your friend who you've known since you were 9 years old, that you recruited, that you know as kids, you know, and tell him that he's not the guy for this job, you know? That was hard. But it's those moments that make you or break you in this world, is like, can you make that hard decision? You know, can you go to that guy and say, this job ain't for you? You know, I didn't fire him, to be clear. Like, he still provided value for the company. He just couldn't do that job. He was not good at that job. And it was hurting me because I'm going somewhere and I need people to lift me up to get there. And, you know, I can't be carrying people, you know, like and at first he was a great uplift for me. And then at some point it became a weight I had to carry. And you can't be that if you're going to work for me. You push me up and you come with me, you know, but you can't hold me back in any job you have. So I think at that point we had to have a really hard conversation. And he said, well, I'll just quit, or I'll go to a competitor, or I'll do this. And I said, you got to do what you got to do, man. You know, like, and then later on that night he called me and we met up for a beer and he was like, you know, you're right. He was like, I'd never been a good manager. I'm really good at my job, but, you know, I thought back to all my jobs and I've really always been good at, like, you know, just doing the work myself. You know, I'm just not a manager. And I was like, great. And he's like, I want to keep my office. And I was like, perfect, done. And he worked for me now. He works for Oracle, and he's basically like my role, but at Oracle. Like, he leads the whole product team, and he's very good and he's talented, but he works by himself because that's his strong point. But it's a hard conversation, and so you get real comfortable with those, and then at some point though, it's sort of alien when you're dealing with like other people who don't talk like that, because you get real used to having hard, awkward conversations with people because you've just done it a lot, and that's hard sometimes to like remember the rules of regular society. You know, my wife has to remind me that, like, you can't ask stuff like that, you know, like you can't talk to people. And I'm like, all right, I'll shut up, you know. You'd be at a dinner party and it'll be like, what do you do for work? And then it'll be like, you know, just asking dumb questions, and she's like, just shut up. So yeah, that's hard. There's a lot of challenges, right? I mean, we missed payroll for ourselves, for the ownership group, you know, for like 6 months at one point. I'll tell you the hardest day of my business life. It was 2015. My son, who's now 11, was 2 and a half, and I had a little baby, and he's 9 now. But he was like 3 years old at that point, and we were trying to buy a house, and we were like, our lease had expired on this place, and we were waiting to close on a house, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to. So we're staying with my wife's mom. And we're a large family. We're 5 people already. Okay, my wife's mom has a 800 square foot apartment. So there's 5 of us in the living room of this tiny little apartment, and my business is doing terrible. It's like we haven't closed the deal in like 6 months. Like, my other customers are starting to run out of patience and juice. Like, I haven't taken a paycheck in forever. I had to prove to the bank that I can make money so I can buy this house. And I'm having like, and my son, by the way, has never asked a question. Like, he talks, he's never asked a question. And I'm starting to think something's going on. You know what I mean? And it's all comes to me in the car on the way home from work. It's late, it's 8 o'clock. And I just like lose my mind. I start like crying, just big sloppy tears, just like driving by myself, just freaking out, like what, you know, what's going on? So I call this old buddy of mine, who I adore, and he's not in business or anything. He's a teacher. And I'm just sobbing, just, you know, and then just going through all my problems. Then I'm like, and you know, Remy, he's never asked a question, and I don't know what's going on with him. And he said, you know, he goes, is he happy? And I was like, Remy? And he goes, yeah. I said, I think he's like the happiest kid I know. And then he goes, then fuck it. And I immediately like realized like I'm holding this, you know, like this is like this, he has no problem. I have the problem. And I'm worried about him having a problem he doesn't have. And like, how selfish is that of me to like worry about him when he's fine? He feels great. What am I doing? And because like, whatever happens to him might not be where I think he should be or what should have happened. Like what am I? You know what I mean? Who am I in this? And I let go of all of it that day, all of it. And I felt 1,000 times better. And I won my $1 million deal after that. And then we did, the business did great. But in that moment, I let go of all my anxiety about my kid growing up. And to this day, I don't have any, you know, and he has an IEP and some other stuff. He does great at school. The kid's fine. You know what I mean? But I don't have any anxiety about any of them anymore because I just don't, whatever they're going to be, they're going to be. And as long as they're happy and I love them and they love me, that's all. That's it. That's the whole game. Because what else are we playing for? You know, like, what are we trying to do here? So yeah, that was probably the hardest day. But those moments, you know, in your life, that moment with my son and the stuff that happened to me with my parents and stuff, again, I think it's that bottom that makes me appreciate just every day, waking up on a Saturday and going to the park. Like, because I've had so many really, really bad days, that those regular days for most people are amazing for me. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but see, that was like 10 minutes.
Another question I have is for a lot of people who are either joining us virtually or joining us in person, they may be early in their AI career, whether they're switching positions from a previous career or they're really waiting to get out into the job market. And so are there any trends as a CEO who's kind of worked in the space that you're seeing that people should keep an eye out for, or some advice that you would like to share to them, like, hey, this is some things that you should start looking into, so that when you get into the career field, you're a little bit more prepared or familiar with some terms?
That's a good question. I think I would just make it clear that two things. One, that you use AI all the time in every aspect of your life. And if you have ethical concerns about it, keep them to yourself. Put them on Twitter. And don't bring that up in a business meeting because that's not of interest here. And they're valid, you can have them, but it's not relevant. And I think, but saying that you've integrated into your life and actually doing so is good, because that tells me that you have a permanent teacher, that you're not gonna, you know, wait to talk to somebody to get some information when you could have asked ChatGPT, right? Or Sarah, or whatever the system is you're using, that you're very familiar with the tool. Knowing the new tool is very important. And I think the second thing is, and you and I talked about this earlier, Kyle, is tell me that you want to work with people. Like, tell me that you're gonna help the people that I serve. When I'm in business, I serve my customers, right? Because if you don't have customers, it's a hobby, right? I fish, nobody pays me, right? That's a hobby. In business though, I serve the customers. I have to provide value for them. So you have to tell me how you're gonna benefit my customers and how you're gonna benefit my team who benefits my customers, right? That you're open-minded to work with them, that you like people, that you want to work with people, even if you don't want to lead them, that you like working on teams, that you're, you know, an easygoing person, or like you're very motivated, you work well with people. That stuff matters a lot. And it's going to matter a lot when a lot of the individual work kind of gets AI'd away. The people who work the best with other people, especially with customers and things like that, are going to matter the most.
Another question I have, because I have plenty. A lot of students have come to me as an academic advisor asking what that next step looks like. And kind of, this is the reason why we created this series. For students who are in the room and those who are tuning virtually, One question that a couple of people wanted me to ask is, are you taking students for any kind of internship, externship roles? And if they were interested in those opportunities, how would they be able to get in contact with you or your organization to be able to start that relationship?
I would love them to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We are growing, and we're always looking for people. You know, especially like, I think the job for the next 10 years or so is probably going to be some area of AI enablement for these large organizations, because they're trying to adopt the technology. They want the technology. They just don't have internally the bandwidth to go train everybody. Like, imagine computers just got invented and everybody in the organization, you know, can benefit from a computer, but you don't have the internal motion to go sit with everybody and teach them what a computer is, you know? And not everybody wants to know what a computer is, right? Because they love the filing cabinet. So there's a lot of that work to be done, especially at like the intern level, right? Where it's just kind of a passion play, but you get the benefit of learning about business along the way, meeting customers, building contacts, traveling, things like that. I think that's a great starting point, kind of evangelism, enablement. On the robotics side, you know, I know Lucid's always looking for great engineers, and they're, you know, just a short flight from here to Charlotte away. So if you are in robotics, hardware, et cetera, especially electrical engineers and full-fledged roboticists, and have experience with drones and or rovers. I know you guys are working on some cool stuff back there with the what do they call them? The arm attachments they're putting on everything now. Everything has an arm. I forget what the word is. They were just saying whatever. If you have experience with that kind of stuff, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and tell me you'd be interested. And, you know, especially the intersection between AI and robotics, right? Like if you've embedded LLMs, you know, done edge stuff like that, you know, I know they're always looking for great people. So feel free to reach out to me.
Well, if there are no other questions, I always like to end on one specific question, which sometimes can be a little cheesy, but is there any closing advice that you would have to this community of anything you think that they should keep on top of mind, just in general about things? I know you gave a lot of nuggets. Sometimes students want things that are a little bit more technical, but those things that are a little bit more qualitative are just as important because, as you said, you work with people. So are there any closing nuggets or pearls that you would like to give our community before we close up tonight's conversation?
I've said it a few times, but it bears repeating, that I truly believe that there was this small moment in human history where you could work by yourself in an office with the door closed for 8 hours a day out of college and make good money. I think those days are gone. If they're not gone yet, they will be. I think you're gonna have to get real used to working with people, all of you. And I don't think any of you should plan on, you know, hey, I'm just gonna do my job myself and kind of be this independent rogue person. I don't think that exists anymore. I think the real value is going to be like, how do you take the information from the world, from AI, from the internet, from this, and then work with other people to create value? I encourage all of you to do it, to work with other people every day, to learn to appreciate them, to learn to solve problems for them. I think that's what's made human society great, is the fact that we do solve problems for each other and we take care of one another. And I think the more you can do that, the better. And I guess on a personal level, I would encourage all of you to appreciate the bad stuff that's happened to you. Like, I'm sure you all have your challenges. I've shared some of mine with you. And I think for a long time, I felt like they were working against me, you know, like it was holding me back. It was a weight. And I realize now that like the pain was very temporary, but the way it changed my outlook, the context it gave me for my life and my work, it was a beautiful thing. And I think if you start to think about the bad stuff that happened to you, like a heavy weight you lifted and now you're stronger because of it, you can leverage that up. You know what I mean? Not to say that you want to go back and lift the weight again, right? Nobody wants to go through that stuff, but the fact that it happened to you, you're stronger. And use it that way. You know what I mean? And look at it that way, because it is about perspective. And it's hard to see sometimes because you're like, this stuff didn't happen to me. But all the stuff I told you about me sounds terrible, but I never thought it was worse than like, I grew up in a time where kids in Africa were like dying of AIDS left and right, right? And like people were without parents and horrible stories. And I always thought like, well, at least my mom was alive for 19 years and I loved her. That's a good thing. Some people don't get that. Some people don't have food on the table every day. I heard stories from friends and family of mine of horrible things that happened to them. I always felt pretty lucky, truthfully. I still do. Because at least the time I got was good. Not everybody even gets that. So, just take those little blessings and take the bad stuff that happens and kind of roll it into who you are and make you appreciate the good things more. That's it.
Well, thank you, Vic.
Thank you, guys.
The podium, have a token of thank you.
Oh.
So thank you so much for all that you've done today, all the communities that you've spoken with today. We really appreciate you having you here in the community, and we hope to invite you back soon. For those who are tuning in virtually and in person, this now concludes our event. I know that says it goes to 6, but we're all about having meaningful conversation for the time that we have. And so it feels like our conversation's come to a close for today. I do want to invite you all to come back into the same space at the same time in 2 weeks from now, because this is our kickoff speaker, but we'll be doing this series for the next few weeks throughout the semester. We actually have 6 more speakers who will come. If you have an opportunity, check us out on the website. We both have happenings pages for our speakers who are coming, as well as we have a full landing page on the undergraduate page. So go on around, check it out, see what speakers really resonate with you. And then if you have questions, all the contact information is there. So thank you for tuning in tonight. For those who are in person, we have more pizza. So please feel free to take a couple slices or boxes if you want to. And then we will look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Question.
What's that?
Thanks for indulging my question.
Oh, no, it was a great question. Thank you. Are you an undergraduate?
Yeah, of course.
What are you working on? Yep.
Right now I'm doing like monkey lab.
Okay.
I do like telepathic monkeys.
How we work?
That use the brain. We have them.
Would you like me to
And then
dispose of this pizza to a great